Okay, this video is going to be a little bit of a rant, but hopefully by sharing my experience, it can be helpful to you. You know, as a photographer, videographer, YouTuber, whatever, you tend to acquire a lot of gear along the way. And sometimes you just want to pare that gear down and get rid of some of the things that you're not using, or you may want to upgrade and have to get rid of some of your older gear to help pay for it. And eBay is a great place to do that. You can put your products out there to the entire world. You can get your cash fairly quickly, although you have to pay seller fees, but it's a good outlet for selling your used merchandise. But there's one thing that I've found out with dealing with eBay recently, is that when it comes to eBay, the buyer is king. Now, we've always heard the old adage that the customer is always right, but when it comes to eBay, it looks like the buyer is always right. Let me tell you what I mean. As an eBay seller, I like to think of myself as a customer as well. I mean, my seller's fees and other sellers' fees are what generates profits for eBay. And I'm not like Amazon, and I don't have an eBay store to churn through a lot of inventory. I'm just a guy who wants to sell my excess gear and make a little cash on the side. And when I get a notification of a sale on eBay, I box it up, pack it as best as I can, and send it out as quickly as I can to the buyer. And before I even list on eBay, I make sure that I give a complete description and let the buyer know exactly what they're getting and take nice photos so they can take a good look at it before they make a purchase. Now, that's a responsibility that I take seriously. And when a buyer buys from me and they make a quick payment, I'll leave them good feedback, although I've noticed lately that people don't seem to be leaving feedback on eBay as much as they used to, but I still try to do it with every sale. So to put things in a little bit of perspective, I've been a buyer and seller off and on eBay for over 20 years, and for the most part, my experiences have been very positive. But recently, I've had an experience where buyers bought an item that was completely described accurately, and they turned around later and asked for a refund. One experience in particular, I sold a Sigma 16mm 1.4 EFM lens, and I specifically stated in the description, that this lens was specifically for an M-series Canon camera, and I went to great lengths to describe that. Well, the buyer got the lens in about 3 days, and it went from Florida to Ohio in 3 days, which was pretty fast for shipping. And they notified me immediately after they got the lens that it didn't fit, in their words. So when I asked what type of camera that they were trying to fit it to, they said they were trying to fit it to a Canon RP, which is a full-frame camera. As I said, I went through great lengths to describe the lens, that it was an EFM lens for an M-series camera, and I don't know how a person could buy that and expect it to fit on a full-frame camera. In no way in any universe is a crop sensor lens going to fit a full-frame camera. But anyway, it was a little irritating, but I looked up eBay's policies and went to forums, and from everything I could see, I had no recourse but to refund their money and get the lens back and try to resell it, which is, it's okay. It's kind of a hassle to do that, but it just led me to be a little bit more serious in my descriptions and tell people, make sure that this item that you're buying is compatible with the equipment that you have. And if it's not, or if you have a question about it, please ask before you make the purchase. Because, I didn't say this, but it's a real pain in the ass to have to return merchandise and have to refund money that you've already gotten and you've already spent back to the seller, back to the buyer rather. But as I've found through reading through forums, that it doesn't matter what the buyer's reason is, eBay's more than likely going to settle in their favor if it goes to a dispute. So as a seller, you pretty much have no recourse but to refund their money, no matter what the reason. In another instance, a buyer bought my Wireless Go 1 on eBay, and then 2 months later sent me an email saying that it didn't work with his camera, a Sony camera. And so, again, I inquired what kind of Sony camera he had, and it turns out it was a Sony camcorder. Now, I don't know what the situation was, but I kept on telling him that I know that the microphone worked because I had it for almost a year and used it a lot, never had a problem with it. And he said it just didn't work with his camera. And I asked him what kind of cables he was using, and he went into this whole thing about he was a videographer, he knew his equipment, he knew what he was doing. And I said, well, all I know is the microphone always worked the entire time I had it. It turns out he needed a TRRS cable, which he finally went and purchased, and the microphone worked. But if he hadn't done that, and he wanted to return the item after 2 months, and after me already having received my money and spent that money, I would have had to refund that money to him, even after 2 months, because I researched it and went on eBay forums and found out that it didn't really matter if they kept it that long. You still had to refund their money. So that's why I'm saying as a seller, you're pretty much screwed. Even if the buyer, has it for a while, uses it and decides they just don't want it, you pretty much have to take it back. If it goes to a dispute, they're probably going to rule in favor of the buyer, because eBay wants to make their buyers happy. It doesn't seem like they really care about making their sellers happy. Now, it's worth noting that when you make a listing on eBay, you can state that you don't accept returns, but that's really meaningless. If a buyer decides they want to return an item and get their refund, you pretty much have to do it. I mean, in 99% of the cases, they're going to rule in favor of the buyer. So as a seller, you're probably better off just going ahead and getting the refund, getting your merchandise back, and having to relist it and go back and sell it to someone else. Kind of a hassle, but that's just the way it is. I'm not really down on eBay. I'm going to continue to use eBay as a resource. But for a transaction to work successfully, it depends on both parties working in good faith. As a seller, I have to make sure that I describe my item accurately and completely and take good photos and pack it and do everything I can to make sure it arrives safely. And as a buyer, you have to be sure that what you're buying suits your needs. And don't wait after you've had the item for a month or so and then try to return it. Or don't just buy something and say, well, if I don't like it, I can just return it and get my money back. I think it kind of works where everyone has to act in good faith. And most people do. Only in a couple of instances I've had lately that's shown me that if those buyers are not acting in good faith, for example, that person who bought the lens and said it didn't fit, I have my doubts about whether they really tried to fit it to a full-frame camera. I think they may have just gotten it and maybe used it for a while, or maybe decided that they could find one a little bit cheaper and they just didn't want it. And so they sent it back and they made up some story that it didn't fit their camera. Yeah, it may not be true. I don't know. All I know is if everyone acts in good faith, it's a good transaction, and eBay is a great place to sell your items. Now, having said that, there are other places to use besides eBay that are a lot cheaper. And you can go to some of these sites like KEH. You can go to Facebook Marketplace, which allows you to sell your items and ship them to anywhere in the United States without paying any seller's fees. So that's another resource. And there's also different camera stores throughout the country that will take used merchandise. I know B&H Photo will take used merchandise, but they're not going to give you very much money for them. When you deal with those people, they're going to sell it, they're going to buy it from you for as cheap as they can get it and make a profit, which is understandable. But when you sell on eBay or Facebook Marketplace, you're going to get the most for your money. Of course, you'll get the most if you just sell it outright to a friend or a fellow photographer or videographer that you know and get the full value of it. But again, I'm not down on eBay. It's still a resource I'm going to use, but I just wanted to share these experiences that I've had recently in hopes that it could help some other people. I know that this is a little bit of a different kind of video than I usually do. Usually I'm giving tips, tutorials, or reviewing some piece of gear that I have, but I just wanted to share this experience that I had recently. As I mentioned in a previous video, I'm moving on from my Canon equipment. I sold my Canon M50 and all the M-series lenses that go with it, although I still have the Sigma 16mm that I've got to sell. I still have that out on eBay. But I just wanted to share that experience because I know many people go through the same experience. They may change the kind of gear that they use and they want to sell their old gear, or they may just have too much gear, which I'm guilty of having too much gear and have to sell it on eBay or sell it through Facebook Marketplace. And just be aware that when you're doing that, what your responsibilities are as a seller, and look at it from the standpoint of the buyer as well and give them the most information that you possibly can. But know that sometimes if you sell on eBay, no matter what you do or how hard you try to accurately describe the item that you're selling, there's going to be some people that are just going to get it and return it for whatever reason, and you pretty much just have to suck it up and accept it and return their money and try to relist the item and sell it again. I hope this video was helpful. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be safe out there, and we will see you in the next video.